And tonight we are talking about Gold Board. And Gold Board is such an important institution. I call it an experiment because it's just been 1 year. We are learning a lot about its challenges, but also its benefits. And today we're going to weigh both and see where we are a year on and what needs to change for it to become sustainable. A sustainable intervention as far as our economic recovery is concerned. But talking about gold, one of its biggest challenges that it is ravaging this entire country is Galamsey. Gold is good, it's bringing a lot of money, but it's also destroying our forest cover, and it is an existential threat. And many people have said that Gold Board itself and the way it operates, one of the unintended consequences could be that maybe fueling illegal mining. And my guests can weigh in on that. And how do you ensure traceability that links the gold that we buy to legitimately established artisanal mines and small-scale mines that then discounts and rules out that is coming from illegal mining sites? That's a question that we'll be dealing with. But last week, I need to do this before we get into the Gold Board question. Last week, on Wednesday, we were here and we talked about assessing the performance of this government when it comes to dealing with illegal mining, especially as we marked the tragic anniversary of the passing of these 8 gallant men who were on their way to fight the Galamsey and they died, including the defense minister at the time, right? In marking it, we made the point, we wanted to go back to Ghana Water Limited to get the turbidity levels, because I believe the turbidity numbers is the gold standard for measuring the improvement in our water levels, but also the impact of the interventions put in place by government to deal with Galamsey. But when we went and we called the Ghana Water officers we've always dealt with, they told us they cannot give us the turbidity numbers because they've been told not to. And then just yesterday, this statement was issued and signed by the managing director, and he made 5 points, and I need to deal with all of them very, very quickly. The first point is that it says it mandates the mandate is to treat raw water. The mandate of Ghana Water Limited is to treat raw water and supply potable water to urban populations under the Ministry of Works, Housing and Water Resources. No doubt about that. No doubt about that. It says 2, Ghana Water Limited conducts internal turbidity tests during treatment and shuts down plants when levels exceed safe thresholds. However, Ghana Water Limited does not hold official data on natural river bodies. That is questionable, and we will show you very shortly that Ghana Water does not hold official data on natural river bodies. Note that. And then it says point 3, according to official records, Mr. Evans Mensah did not visit the Kwenyako plant. Note that, I'll come to that. And then 4, the responsibility for managing and monitoring river bodies and holding turbidity data lies with the Ghana Resources, the Water Resources Commission and Environmental Protection Agency. Okay, and so what? I mean, we'll come to that. And then finally, it is therefore totally untrue that the presidency has directed Ghana Water to withhold river turbidity data. Let's start with that 5th point. Now, nowhere did I say that the presidency has directed officers to withhold turbidity data. It is a fiction and an inaccurate statement in the mind of the managing director. That was never said, because I don't see the point, because nobody said that. I didn't say that. I don't know where he had it. And that's what my point. And you should read my article to rebut this with the evidence on my Joy Online. I was very clear. This is a figment of a very fertile imagination to say that suggests that I had said that the presidency had directed Ghana Water to withhold river turbidity data. And they never said that. What I said was very clear, that when we reached out to the officers, senior officers, many of them told us in very clear terms that they will not, because they've been victimized before and they will be victimized again. And so they've been told not to give us. And so we didn't get the data. So discount point 5, because that was not said. It isn't true. What I stand by is what I just said, that indeed the officers, senior officers, including some managers, were very clear to us that we've given to you before, but we can't give you now because we've been told not to. And then the point about 3, according to the official records, I did not visit the Kwabenya plant. Again, nobody suggested that I went there myself. We said we made calls, we checked. And so I don't know, again, why this is even necessary in a statement for the MD to issue. We checked, we called, and we're told we can't give you the information. So again, discount point 3, because again, it is more fiction. It is based on a fictitious appreciation and conjuring issues that were not said on the show last week. And so you are responding to something that really didn't happen. Point 3, discounted. Now let's go to the main point. I think that's a tragedy of us all. This is Ghana Water Company strenuously trying to tell us that they do not hold official stability data. Say categorically that Ghana Water does not hold official data on natural river bodies as far as stability is concerned, and that it is only the responsibility of the Ghana Water Resources Commission and Environmental Protection Agency. That again is inaccurate. This document you have on your screen there is a document we received from the Ghana Water Limited last year in September. To be very specific, this is 6th September. I did a show here on the war, J0rm and the war against Galamsey, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And we got this from the Ghana Water Limited. And it says they do not hold stability data as it relates to river bodies. You see here, Ayensu River. And this document, it is the official record that Ghana Water Company takes of what they call the Water Quality Assurance Coagulation Test that has stability, color, alkalinity, total hardness. At the time that we went there, they opened the books for us to see their records. So the key question to us, does Ghana Water Limited hold stability data or not? Do they record and do they hold and store it? Yes, they do. So what's the point about we don't have official records as far as that is concerned? When this they gave to us, last year when we went in September, the stability at the Kwinyako Headworks was 94,800 NTU. Not only that, the Ghana Water Limited officials there were very happy to share with us the historic data that they have accumulated, recorded officially in their books as far as this water body is concerned. Watch.
Around back then, we record color 450, 400, and the stability was around 33. Yeah. That is some
on average.
Yes, on average. You can see we even get 25 for stability, 31, 32.
Which was fine.
That one, the system was working well with it. You can see.
26.
So when it gets to like 65, 60, when you record getting to 100, then you start
panicking.
Yes, like, oh, what is going on? Maximally, you can see the 50s, 60s.
Now what is happening?
You can see 18, 19, 21.
So now currently what is happening?
You can see raw water. We recorded 8. At times you could get to even 5.
Wow.
For stability. And color, you can see 100. And then now we are recording color over 300,000. This is on the 6th of September. On the 6th of September, yeah. So the stability, they recorded 94,800.
And the normal should be around what?
You can see, like 50. Yes, like 50. So even if it has gone so bad, like 500, it's even too much for the system. But now 94,800. Then the color 105,000. Okay, color of about 100, maybe maximum 500 is now 105,000. Okay, so you can see it was written that no flock formation, therefore no supernatant for analysis.
What does it mean?
After the dosages the person added, after performing the test, it didn't coagulate. It didn't coagulate. The water was so bad, so it couldn't coagulate. So after even leaving it to settle, it didn't settle. So they couldn't get even the supernatant.
So that is Ghana Water. And those are the official records. And the source of that data and the test is the St0rm River. And so you have to contrast that with the position of the Ghana Water Company MD when he says they do not hold official data or as far as turbidity is concerned as it relates to river bodies, because they do record the turbidity levels as far as the St0rm River is concerned, and others, by the way. And that is the evidence you saw there. Yes, the Water Resources Commission and the EPA may have primary responsibility, but it doesn't mean at all that the Ghana Water Limited has no responsibility as far as holding turbidity data is concerned, because the evidence says they do. And on the point about the officers that we spoke to, in fact, one of them sent a WhatsApp and they were very clear on what was happening and why they can't give us. And that's what you have on the screen there. It says, I have been personally told to stay away from talking about Galamsey. And if I ask for this figure, which is the figure we're looking for at the time, the current turbidity data, it may bring me a problem later. And that was an explanation. And we had to let it go because they've been very good with sharing that data with us in the past. And by the way, ask the question yourself. Has the Ghana Water Limited themselves officially released turbidity data to the public before? Again, the answer is yes. Because if you go back to 2024, and to be very precise, the 30th of August, they issued this statement telling us, and nobody asked them to. This is the Ghana Water itself. So I don't know whether the policy had changed since this current MD came into office, but they told us 30th August 2024, they told us the turbidity levels of the River, especially within the catchment for abstraction. They told us that it was 14,000 NTU. This is the Ghana Water Limited itself issuing a press release telling us what the turbidity numbers are as far as the water that they've been treating is concerned. Why is this important? If we have to win the war, we need to know if we're making progress. And one, for me, the gold standard for measurement of whether you're making progress is the turbidity level, because it tells you if the input, the actions you're taking, the interventions, they are yielding results. If they are, it will show here in the turbidity. And that's why they need to be regular with updating us on the turbidity numbers. And then all of a sudden, MD says, if you want it, Water Resources Commission, EPA, because we don't hold official data as far as the turbidity of river bodies are concerned. That basically is a major red herring to mislead. The focus is on providing the turbidity data so we can measure and help you keep track of the improvements as we roll out all these measures the president has been telling us to deal with Galamsey. And the evidence I've shown you shows that Ghana Water, they've been doing that in the past. And just when we start calling and asking for it recently, as I've shown you, they've done it in the past. Now they're telling us stories about we don't hold it. We just measure turbidity when it comes to our treatment plants and not river bodies. That's not even important. I'm saying that is a red herring. Forget about that and focus on the turbidity numbers, which you have. So release it. So what are we doing? We filed an RTI request to the Ghana Water Limited, to Water Resources Commission, and to the EPA. And we are waiting for them to give us those, and then we'll share with you so we can monitor what's happening. It's in the interest of government itself, in the interest of transparency, for them to release it. And so disregard that statement that was issued. It was based on a huge dose of fictitious appreciation of what was said that never was said. We were responding to that, and then to basically throw in red herrings to take us off the key issue of what is happening to our water bodies and are we improving or not. My guest, let's focus on Goldball for a second now. Foucault Kodia is a deputy ranking member on the Economy and Development Committee, joins us right now on Zoom. Also joining me in the studio, I'm happy to have him, Dr. Steve Mattel, co-chair of the Ghana Extractive Industry Transparency Initiative and a policy analyst. He's been following this very closely. Professor Godfrey Bokwe, economist and professor of finance at the UGBS. Patrick Stevenson is a country manager, Natural Resource Governance Institute. And also we have a TISA member Finance Committee of Parliament, MP St0rm. And I want to start with you, Patrick Stevenson, as far as this question is concerned. I want to go straight to the point. Gold Board is just a year old. What's your verdict on what it has done in 1 year? Is it largely a positive that must be kept, one that must be reviewed, reformed, or one that we must simply step down and take a second look? Where do you stand on this? Okay, let me bring Bokwe into the conversation then. Prof, thank you very much for joining us. We're trying to fix the sound with some of our guests. But Prof, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you loud and clear.
Fantastic.
Can you hear me?
I can. Well, Prof, what's your verdict on Gold Board a year on?
Well, I think that there is no doubt that Gold Board has helped significantly in crowding in gold-related effects. You indicated in your introduction that the level of smuggling, in terms of if you measure the difference between gold export data from Ghana and then importing countries, if you do the reconciliation, you can see that the gap has narrowed significantly with the introduction of Gold Board. And I think that is a credit to Gold Board. There's no doubt and all of that. Let me start off by saying that, look, Evans, the two main political parties in the run-up to 2024 general elections recognized the issue with illegal mining or gold production and then reporting, accounting for it, and all of that. So you will notice that in the NPP manifesto, they had indicated a proposal to reduce the final withholding tax on gold export from artisanal small-scale mining in order to encourage them to declare, and then so that we are also able to accrue the gold-related effects and all of that. The NDC adopted a different approach, which was more or less to set up a gold board to create more or less like a cocoa board, which was going to be the sole entity in charge of buying and then exporting gold, especially from artisanal small-scale miners. So this was arrangement. So we way back we recognized that this was an issue and all of that. So to the extent that the NDC had operationalized their intervention, of course, given that they won the mandate and all of that, we can see the impact of Gold Board activities in terms of crowding in efforts. Foreign exchange that previously had been smuggled and didn't ultimately end up in this country, probably ended up in private accounts outside this country, whilst the CDE continually depreciates. So we recognize that fact. That said, this whole domestic gold purchase arrangement, for which Gold Board essentially became the face of it from 2025, has also come at a significant loss to us. It has come at a significant loss. So any discussion about the impact of Gold Board, we must be able to situate that within the parameters of the cost involved and then also the benefits.
Oh, so let's do that. Let me ask you straightforward then. If you did the cost benefit analysis, where would you put where would you stand? Would you stand more towards it's too costly, or the benefits outweigh the cost?
Well, my position after examining the data, and Evans, this is not a new position. I've been talking about this way back last year, that if you look at the losses we are talking about here, huge. They were design defects of the program. Okay. Let me put it that way. They were design defects because I'm sure that if with better planning and then expert input about the whole design, looking at the value chain approach, I am sure that we could have minimized these losses and vis-a-vis the benefit that we are getting. Okay, so in terms of the benefits, if we talk about macroeconomic stability, that is not the job of Gold Board. Macroeconomic stability comes from essentially fiscal and monetary, which is Bank of Ghana and all of that. So we cannot say that when it comes to macroeconomic stability, which essentially is the work of Bank of Ghana, and then the fiscal side, Ministry of Finance, Gold Board can take that benefit. Then when it comes to the cost, which the losses which sit in the books of Bank of Ghana, we have nothing to say or do about that. I think it's one country, it's one economy we are looking at and all of that. So my position is that, yes, I recognize the impact of Gold Board, and I celebrate the progress that they have made in terms of crowding in gold-related effects, which ordinarily would have been smuggled, would have lost the effects and all of that. But then again, if you look at the losses, okay, in here, again, that brings the question of whether we fully anticipated these losses from the beginning. And the reason I'm saying so is because of the posture of Gold Board and Bank of Ghana when actually in 2025, December 2025, the IMF published that the domestic gold purchase program had recorded losses of about $214 million. It was denied and all of that. So now we are talking about 22 billion Ghana cedis or 1.7 billion Ghana cedis. In fact, Evans, let me put this across, that if you adopt a holistic approach and look at the whole intervention we put in place, the losses actually exceed the $1.7 billion we are talking about here.
You mean even more than the 22 billion cedis equivalent?
Yes, because in addition to all these fees and charges, exchange rates related and the rest of them, government also abolished the 1.5% withholding tax that our small scale artisanal holders should have paid. Is that okay? So that is also a fiscal loss that we had to give up in order to crowd them in. So you have all these losses sitting on the books of Bank of Ghana. Is that okay? In addition to that, we had to abolish the 1.5%. So if you look at the total gold exports from artisanal small-scale miners, which is more than $10 billion, is that okay? And you want to do the analysis in terms of the fiscal losses, which could have gone to our revenue envelope, probably to fund roads, schools, and infrastructure. We have to give up that one also. So, all in the name of trying to make sure that we are able to crowd in the FX related. So the losses, if you look at it, you adopt a value chain approach, and Charlie, you will see that the losses actually go beyond the 22 billion that we are talking about.
So overall then, and very straight to the point, does the cost outweigh the benefits, or does the benefits outweigh the cost?
Well, I think that if you look at the benefit in terms of the macroeconomic stability and all of that, I would say that the benefit is quite substantial. But we must also recognize the costs, the huge costs associated with implementing this intervention. That should not be discounted. The reason I'm saying so is that Evans, government itself, together with Gold Board and Bank of Ghana, recognize that these losses are not sustainable going forward. Okay. And you know that as part of the exit plan of Bank of Ghana exiting this, there's now an understanding where government intends, through Gold Board, the arrangement, they intend to reduce these losses from about 17% or 14.5% to about 5%.
Okay. Stay with me. I want to bring the other colleagues in. Doc, where do you stand on this?
Well, Evans, I think there's
it's possibly the biggest debate in the last 1 month.
There's a certain level of insincerity in discussing this very issue. And we make it look like this is the first time Ghana is making losses in its gold purchase program. I've looked at the data. 2022, we made loss. 2023, 2024, 2025. We've made losses all those years. Why didn't that become a problem?
I guess maybe because you're seeing 22 billion. That's dropping. Nothing close to that.
Let's say, for instance, in 2024, we made a total loss of 5.7 billion.
Cedis?
Yes, cedis. 1.8 billion from gold for oil, and then 3.8 billion from our domestic gold for reserves. Total of 5.7 billion. Right, how much revenue, gold export revenue did we bring in? A mere 4 billion. And so if you had to incur a loss of 1.7 billion to bring in 10 billion, that for me shouldn't be a problem. It means that we should accept that incurring losses, what we call losses, for me, they are transaction costs. And all the governments over the years have been incurring transaction costs. And that has not become a problem. So why this time around we treat gold board as if it is the first time we are making losses? We don't even consider the quantum of forex that gold board has brought in. And so you need to look at the relativity. How much did you spend to bring in what? And what has been the impact? The economy-wide impact for me exceeds the cost.
So your conclusion is that the benefit justifies the cost?
Oh, yes. You have forex stability, so business can plan properly. Your imports have gone down. I mean, in terms of cost of your imports have gone down. Now, that gives you the opportunity, if you use incentives, to get people to import machinery so that your 24-hour economy can benefit from the stability. Now, again, you have low inflation, you have low interest rates, and all these get to establish the foundation for economic growth. So you cannot tell me that dwarfs compared to how much you spent in actually ensuring that stability in the losses you've made in gold for oil.
So,
I mean, the gold for reserves.
Gold for reserves. But ultimately, $1.7 billion.
Exactly.
That is half of what we went for from the IMF. That's half of it.
And what ratio is that of the 10 billion that was brought in?
Because of gold board.
Yes.
So you're doing that net opposite.
Exactly.
But if you're selling gold and losing 1.7 billion in a year, that is not sustainable.
No. You see, we need to understand something. The context at the time when gold board was given the mandate to do what it's doing now, gold board needed to penetrate the market. There were already established relationships. The Indians were providing money. The Chinese were providing equipment. The Turkish, they were all providing resources for Ghanaian miners in exchange for the gold. Now, you set up a gold board and you want gold board to win the market. How do they do that? They've not offered any support to the miners. The only way they can do that is to ensure that they offer better price. But as you offer better price, that's a cost that you cannot recover through your transactions. So for instance, for the Indians, the Chinese, and the foreigners, they were actually buying their gold at a discount. Gold board was buying at market price. In fact, using forest rate, the Forest Bureau rate, which was far higher than the Bank of Ghana rate. And so you find that there's a certain uncovered cost in the transactions, but it was necessary for them to win the Ghanaian miners and to get them to sell to gold board. So we need to actually just situate the conversation within the context in which gold board found itself when it was given the mandate to regulate gold trade.
Fascinating. Two very interesting points here. I think Prof is in the middle talking about finding ways to make this sustainable. Doug is very emphatic that the benefits definitely outweigh the cost and it justifies the cost indeed. Let me bring in Foko Kodria Cheneboa, who is a deputy ranking on the Committee on Economy and Development. Thank you very much for joining me. First of all, the Minority Day press conference today. Dr. Steve Mathiel has a point, does he not? That if you look at the challenge that gold board was facing in its first year of experimentation, this particular loss that has become center of the minority criticism is a justified pain. To look at the benefits that had come in, more than 10 billion plus. And of course, the foreign reserve had increased to 13 billion.
You hear me?
I can, yes. Thank
and
you.
You can hear you.
I can, yes. What do you make of that explanation?
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Yes. You see, gold board's achievement has been touted.
Oh, goodness, you're having a challenge with him. By the way, whilst we try and fix that and reconnect to him, I have Ataisa on the line. Ataisa is a member Finance Committee of Parliament. Ataisa, you can certainly say, can you, that the 1.7 billion, 22 billion CDs, profits now suggesting that it could actually be more, isn't sustainable, is it? And something must give, must do something drastically, or this could crash.
All right. So let me say apologies for not seeing me on video. I will just begin by saying good evening to you and to the colleagues in the studio. Now, I want to begin my submission by saying, first of all, I disagree with the cost-benefit analysis situation that was done by Prof. Bokwe, in the sense that you don't analyze benefit of bringing in more reserves as against the reported $1.7 billion, and you cannot clearly see that there is so much benefit over the cost of the entire program. Now, it is also important for us to distinguish, and this point must be made clearly, that the 22 billion Ghana cedis that was reported by the IMF was very clear. And the IMF itself, in its issued paper on this, cautioned the way we assess the situation. This is what the IMF had to say on it. They said that the 2025 audited financial statement and that of the IMF selected issue analysis apply different measurements and reporting approaches. The audited financial statements reflect established accounting and financial reporting framework, whilst the IMF report adopts a broader economic methodology. The resulting figures are therefore not directly comparable. A transparent reconciliation of methodologies, periods, and components underlining the different estimates will provide a more useful basis for assessment. This is important for me in the sense that we have a different methodology on how to arrive at cost of operations. The IMF also has a different approach. They adopt a more broader quasi-fiscal expenditure framework in analyzing the domestic gold purchase program, and they have been very consistent. So in analyzing the losses attributable to gold purchase program or the gold board, I think that the characterization of always referencing gold board is overstated in the sense that the same architectural arrangement that was introduced in 2021 is still the same architecture that is being done by the gold board. There is no much difference. And I will also reference the October IMF release on say. Look, I think Dr. Mateo said something which is very significant. If you look at 2021, in 2022, the domestic gold purchase program made a loss of 74.44 million Ghana cedis. In 2023, we made a loss of 1.37 billion Ghana cedis. And in 2024, we made a total loss of 5.66 billion Ghana cedis. We used what we call the broadness loss classification. Now, this is what the IMF had to say after they validated the 2024 loss. And it's important for listeners to understand. The IMF themselves subsequently estimated 2024 program losses at about 400 million United States dollars. These figures suggest that the program best assess its full period of operation. Now, the reason why you see substantial jump in the cost of the project is because also, let's be clear here. Now, Evans, in 2021, the total tonnage of gold that we bought was 8.74 tons. And it translated to about 74.4 million losses. In 2022, we purchased 3.47 tons. In 2023, we purchased 37.02 tons, and it translated to the 1.37 billion. In 2024, we purchased 56.47 tons, and it translated to the 5.66 billion. In 2025, we purchased 110.99 tons, more than double what we had in 2024. Naturally, it will come with a cost. And that is why the IMF was quick to say that in analyzing this thing, we need to look at the broader scope of cost methodologies. And they were very clear. And we have been very consistent why we are getting these losses. Apart from the assayers fees, the trading discounts, and all those things, we were very clear also to say that part of the difficulties that we are having is as a result of the exchange differential. And if you look at the Bank of Ghana's Act, and viewers can just Google the Bank of Ghana's Act, it states how special drawings right and exchange differentials are treated in the books of the Bank of Ghana. And that is why the exchange differential are not operational costs, and that is why it is not reflected in the determination of the profit and loss of the Bank of Ghana, but treated under other comprehensive income in the balance sheet of the Bank of Ghana. So I'm trying to look at it from the broader perspective. One, what is the primary motive of the domestic gold purchase program that was introduced in 2021? The idea was they came with two key mechanisms: domestic gold purchase program, and then that is the gold for reserve, and then gold for oil. The idea was, one, to make sure that we have stability in exchange rate, and then the second one was to also have stability in the price of fuel. In these two basic objectives, when we juxtapose the 2024 or from 2021 to 2024 vis-a-vis the stated objectives, we do not see any tangible benefit that we derive from the domestic gold purchase program. But in 2025, all of us agree at the table that they have the stability of the city.
Okay.
Also, so when you juxtapose the project, the policy objectives vis-a-vis the outcomes that we saw in 2025, there is an undeniable fact that the policy indeed achieved.
Okay. So you also stand where Dr. Mattel is, which is that the benefits justify the costs that we've seen. Let me bring in Trineboa. We lost him earlier on the call. He's a deputy ranking on the Economic Committee. Mr. Trineboa, what do you make of that point?
Yeah, thank you very much. I believe I'm being heard clearly now.
I can, yes. Hopefully it holds.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, that's great. So I thank you. See, the issue about gold board, I mean, now, as my colleague in Parliament put across, gold board has helped build some reserves, and for that matter, it's being touted that have been built, which have supported the strength of the city. But you see, if you are scoring an entity, it must be balanced. Yes, some reserves have been built, but you ask yourself, at what cost? And is it sustainable? And these costs, were they legitimately approved? Did they go through the right channels? Okay, so reserves have been built, but look at the costs. Cost to it of $1.7 billion US dollars. And $1.7 billion US dollars, this is equivalent to 9.4% of total revenue and grants for the year 2025. For the entire country, 9.4% of total revenue and grants for 2025. So it is not a figure that you can just gloss over. 1.7 billion US dollars is equivalent to 22 billion Ghana cedis. The entire budgetary allocation to the Ministry of Health of this country for 2026 is 22.8 billion cedis. So it's just equivalent to that. It's equivalent to the entire allocation to the Ministry of Health of this country. So it is significant loss. If you look at the entire ECF loan from IMF of 3 billion US dollars, the 1.7 is more than half of that. So it is significant. That is why I'm saying, yes, we built some reserve, but at what cost? But you ask yourself, this country, really, are we just focusing on merely building reserves or thinking of building productive capacities of this country? Yes. Because whenever you talk about gold board, the response is that, yes, we are building reserves with it. We are building reserves with it at this huge cost. And that is not really what we need. It shouldn't be our focus that we are just building reserves. We should build
but the gold board benefit, I mean, the gold board benefit does not only give us reserves. We've seen the stability in the city, and as we know, the city drives the stability in the city, and as against the dollar.
Reserves, of course.
Yeah, but I'm saying that's one part. That's one part of it. But what about the main point of currency stability? Because everything else in this country, our ability to be productive, actually rests on the stability of the city. Is the reason why you introduced that gold for oil to fundamentally stabilize the city?
They are all interlinked. Okay, if you're building reserves, of course there will be less pressure on the dollar, and by extension, your city will stabilize. But what I'm saying is, you need to build focusing on building reserve at this huge cost to the nation. You need to look at the entire chain, the entire value chain from the time gold is purchased at the ASM level all the way to the time it is sold to off-takers, and look at every aspect of, okay, the point where gold is purchased, what level or at what, at that point, the fees that are charged, okay, the ad valorem fees that is charged, the assaying fees, are they benchmarked? Okay, the discounts that we give to off-takers, are they benchmarked? Were they legitimately approved? These are key questions that we need to ask.
Yeah, and Mr. Tudewa, let's now look.
We are talking about significant losses.
Losses, yes. So because of the losses, let me ask you, what would you do with Gold Board? What's the minorities'
Gold Board,
alternative?
yes.
What would you do with it?
Nobody is saying Gold Board should be closed.
Okay.
The model that Gold Board is running now needs to be entirely reviewed.
Okay.
And that is what Parliament we are calling for. That we need to investigate these laws, and by investigating these laws, by extension, we will review the entire value chain.
What would you change? What is the most? What would the most?
Processes.
What is the most important thing about the Gold Board structure that you will change?
The entire structure is what has led to this significant loss. Look, if you are buying gold, okay, for instance, at a certain price from ASM, and you are selling it at a later date, you are exposing yourself to the market. So that is your single biggest exposure, your single biggest risk. You ask yourself today, from the point that gold is purchased to the time that it is sold, what risk mitigations are put there? What risk mitigation methods have been put there? We don't.
Okay. Unfortunately, we're having a challenge with the line, but I think he's made the point about don't scrap Gold Board, review the entire architecture. Doug, let's talk about the sustainability question.
No, I don't understand what he means by review the entire architecture. Which aspect of it is the problem?
I think one of the things he's mentioned is
unless you want to say
the gap between the purchase and the sale.
Yes, and as
in
I
between,
explained earlier,
expose itself to the market.
it was a necessary cost to incur at the beginning, given the established relationships between foreign agents who were buying gold and our local miners. Now, going forward, we see some efforts to reform how the Gold Board operates. Already, the Ghana National Association of Small-Scale Miners went around the country, consulted with their membership, and they have proposed to Gold Board to now sell their gold at 2% discount and no more at the going international market rate. That in itself indicates that Gold Board has been able to win the trust of the miners, and so has been able to establish a relationship. There are a number of things that Gold Board is trying to do also for these miners. For instance, providing geological data to prevent speculative digging, providing, processing facilities, central processing facilities to ensure higher recovery rate. And this is going to be done with the support of the World Gold Council. There are a number of initiatives. Look, there are international organizations that are interested in the Gold Board. The UK Ghana Gold Program, for which I consult, is involved in the work of the Gold Board. The OECD, the World Gold Council are all involved and supporting in one way or the other to ensure that the Gold Board adheres to the OECD requirements on responsible mineral sourcing. The traceability we talk about are all being supported by international reputable institutions. So we are not, Gold Board is not where it was last year. It's moved and it's reforming. Formerly, it used to be financed by the World Bank. There were outcry around that. Now, Gold Board is going to finance its own operations. And therefore, there's a way in which we must recognize that the organization is not static. It listens and it reforms. At the time we established the Gold Board, there had never been any institution of that kind. It was an uncharted path. We never regulated gold trade in this country. We left it open to everybody, foreigners alike, to come in, buy gold, and take it out of the country. I always raise the question as to why we designated that Kotoka International Airport should be the only exit point for our gold. And so you go to Lombe and other exit points, and you don't have equipment for detecting gold. Now we have a regulator that is ensuring that the necessary equipment are installed at the various exit points to be able to reduce smuggling. So let's recognize that we are doing something good that will help this country. Let's contribute ideas in terms of how we improve it and not to shut it down.
You won't change anything about Gold Board as it is now?
Well, the only problem with the Gold Board from the feedback that we are getting has to do with the pricing policy. We can contribute ideas to how we ensure.
So you agree with Trenebois?
Oh, yes, we need to look at the pricing policy again and make sure. But you see, once you have a very stable exchange rate, you don't suffer from the volatilities that give rise to the losses.
But of course, the Gold Board is supposed to cure the volatility in the exchange.
Exactly. So if their work consistently brings in the gold, and the Ministry of Finance working with the Bank of Ghana are able to stabilize the currency, then of course the foreign exchange volatilities that gives rise to losses is reduced.
The 1.7 billion is what has been recorded. It's not sustainable, is it?
Sustainable in the sense of what?
That we can't keep incurring that sort of loss for the long term.
Where are you incurring that loss from?
Well, as far as the IMF is concerned, it's coming from the trading losses that we are incurring.
This is
part of it.
This is the 1.7 billion that is being reported. Is presumably less the amount you should have gotten as a country. So really, it's your own money that you got a bit less. Now, going forward, I say this particular regime in which we are now is a temporary one. Going forward, we need to find a way to diversify the economy away from commodities such as gold. And so what you do is that you encourage value addition. And that's what we're doing with the refinery of gold. You want to also make sure that the stability in the currency is taken advantage of. Currently, we have 5% import duty on machinery and equipment for manufacturing. You want to waive that to encourage people to go into manufacturing, so that you are able to diversify. You add value to agricultural produce and other manufacturing activities. Then your main source of revenue will come from the export of semi-finished or finished products to the international market.
Okay. But back to the point, you believe 1.7 billion is okay?
It is relativity.
Or you're saying that by next year, by this time, it will be 1.7 billion to be less?
Are
you confident?
I wish it will even be zero. But we need to interrogate this particular issue from the point of view of whether the cost we are talking about or the loss was necessarily and legitimately incurred.
And you say it was legitimately incurred?
I won't be able to say. I haven't interrogated it. That should be the question.
So do you agree with the minority? They are calling for a probe. They are calling for a proper scrutiny of the operations.
Scrutiny is good.
So that we can understand what's happening.
Exactly.
Where the loss is happening.
Scrutiny
and then you can
is good.
Prescribe proper solutions.
And I think that so far, the Gold Board has availed itself to be scrutinized. They've been all over the place explaining the so-called losses to Ghanaians. And Ghanaians have been asking questions, and they've been receiving responses to their questions. Today, there was a national dialogue. The media, everybody, civil society, they were there. And people were asking questions, and they were getting answers. So I think that transparency is good. Accountability is good. And so I do not begrudge the opposition in pushing for better clarity on some of these things. But for me, the impression is created as if this is the first time Ghana has made losses. Somebody was threatening that, look, if the table turns, Sammy Gyamfi will go to jail.
The minority has said that very categorically.
Yeah.
Because of losses. I mean,
Yes.
as we know in this country,
Yeah.
causing financial loss is a big thing.
And I'm saying that if nobody went to jail for 2022 loss, 2023 loss, 2024 loss, 2025 loss, then nobody is going to go to jail.
Professor Bokwin, what will you do with Gold Board?
Evans, I'm not sure anybody, well, let me speak for myself, has asked for the shutdown of Gold Board. That's not the argument we are making. That's not the argument we are making. And I've never made that argument. And I'm not too sure people are saying that collapse Gold Board. I think the cost incurred has raised concerns. And these are not just notional costs. Evans, these costs or losses we are seeing here, you can trace the credit, the gains, to off-takers, private companies that were the other end of the equation. They are the ones smiling. Let me also put this across, that the argument that Gold Board had to offer competitive price, higher price, in order to attract the gold. From 2025, by law, Gold Board was the only company as the off-taker. By law. It was not like you are offering better price to outcompete the others. The others were not allowed to play in the market. Whatever they were doing was smuggling. They had to be, together with security agents and the rest of them, we look at how we close that. So the idea was not that that there are many buyers and therefore let's offer higher price so as to outcompete the others. Gold Board is a monosony. Is a sole buyer, exporter of gold from artisanal small scale from 2025. This is what Gold Board had been set up to do. Of course, we recognize that initially there will be challenges here and there and all of that. And if you look at the fact that the price at which we were buying gold was probably the highest in the region, and all of that clearly tells that probably the losses as a result of the design, the pricing regime was a bit more costly for us in the face of the gains that we are talking about. That should not be lost on us. Evans, let me also say this, that there's a considerable admission of these design defects for which interventions are being put in place to correct it. So the core, from last year, the core about looking at the pricing regime, looking at the interventions and all of that, we didn't make those calls all in the name of trying to shut down Gold Board. No, not at all. So look at it this way. We indicated that we were sacrificing the balance sheet of Bank of Ghana as a residual risk claimant in all of these things. And because of that, we were not mindful of the cost incurred in scaling up the domestic gold purchasing arrangement and all of that. And you will see that as part of the exit arrangement, you will see from the document, as part of the exit arrangement, there is undertaking to reduce these losses to about 5% going forward. And even the half year or so, there are indications that the Gold Board had been reforming along this area. I think that is what we need to do. Okay, so because the cost is quite huge, we cannot discount that. It's quite huge. And if you look at the costs, and why is it so? Evans, you will see that the fee, the charges, and the fees that goes to Gold Board as part of the exit arrangement has been slashed by 50%. Why is that so? All of this is to minimize the losses, because the fees and charges that was going to Gold Board, being paid to Gold Board, has been considered to be a bit high. So as part of the exit arrangement, that has been halved. So whilst in the books of Gold Board, it shows as huge profit or so, it's showing as losses cost on the books of another state-owned entity, Bank of Ghana, that was paying these charges on assay and the rest, and the fees and the rest of them. Then again, there is also improvement in narrowing the spread between the forex rates and then the reference rates and all of that. Okay, so we have incurred so much cost, only to get to the point to realize that something could be done about it, and something is being done about that. Okay, so the fact that something is being done about that, the fact that there's a collective understanding and undertaking that we need to reduce these costs from 17% or so to about 5% going forward is quite commendable. It's an admission.
Okay.
That
so I'll still come
it's
to
an admission.
you're happy with the progress then?
I'm happy with the progress. This is what we've been calling for.
Okay.
All this while. We were not happy with the fact that we were smuggling the gold and losing the FX. But we should also not be ignorant, and we shouldn't take for granted that the way we have operationalized the domestic gold purchase with gold board uptake, with the fees we're paying to gold board and the charges, has come at a higher cost. We need to situate that in that conversation so that we can have the kind of reform that we need. But bear in mind, now that Bank of Ghana is exiting.
Yes. Yeah. Land on that point. Yeah.
Bear in mind that now that Bank of Ghana is exiting in terms of backstopping and all of that, this cost would have to be borne either by the Ministry of Finance through budgetary provision, or it will sit in somewhere in the books of Gold Board, because you are taking over certain responsibilities now with certain costs, and all of that has to be managed transparently.
So having said that, then, are you satisfied with the reforms that Dr. Mattia is saying to us that are being currently implemented to reduce these losses?
Yes, we are making good progress along that line. We are making good progress. The other bit you should also bear in mind.
And which intervention, Prof, most pleases you as far as the tweaks are concerned as we progress? And what would you recommend we should add to that? And briefly, so I can get Dr. Mattia and others in before we wrap up. Let's
bear in mind that we've had to eliminate the 1.5% withholding tax. So it means that all these huge billions of gold-related revenue we are talking about here is not impacting our revenue envelope. Okay, so that we can have more money, taxes, to be able to build roads, hospitals, schools, and stuff like that. We should be looking at that. Okay. Now that we've been able to crowd that in, we should be putting in place the measures so that we strengthen the fiscal revenue from that side as well. Okay. And then again, we should also be mindful about the fact that there's so much cost when it comes to environmental destruction that has not been costed and factored into all of this. So if we are just discussing, it's not like Gold Board has been buying gold from very responsible mining companies. We are still destroying our water bodies, destroying our environment and all of that. So if you just narrow all of this to just the benefit without looking at both the explicit, implicit cost, environmental cost, ecological integrity we are compromising and all of that, I think it's too much of a narrow perspective to adopt as a country. Given that the harm cannot easily be reversed or corrected at a lower cost.
Thank you, Prof. Doc.
Yes. I think Professor Bobkin needs to recognize that we set up Gold Board as a monopoly, but there was no guarantee that the miners were going to sell their gold to them.
But if they did anything other than sell to them, it would be legal.
Because, in 2020, we attempted to enforce a fiscal rule, that is 3% withholding tax on small-scale gold products. That led to a decline in gold exports from 37% of the total national export to 3%.
So they all went underground?
Yes.
Because if you show your face, you pay your
Exactly.
tax.
So they were all smuggled out of the country. Look, we have porous borders. It's not like we are able to police our borders so well that you set up a monopoly.
So it's a legitimate incentive to take off the tax.
So if we are trying to use anything but, like force, definitely it will drive the business underground. We'll lose the gold, won't get the revenue. So Gold Board was right to use incentives to win the trust of the miners. And that has actually paid off.
Basically, what you're saying is that the incentive was to get them not to smuggle. So we have actually reduced the level of smuggling substantially. And that has paid off in the, unprecedented volume of gold exports that were recorded under the Gold Board. Ataisa, would you keep Gold Board as it is, or would you reform part of it? And what will you tweak to make it sustainable?
I think Parliament in February this year introduced the Ghana program. Mm-hmm. And part of it was to make sure that we remove the cost burden that it has on the books of the Bank of Ghana to the off-takers. Now, the funding arrangement, apart from the annual budgetary allocation that will be given to the gold board, we are also making arrangements where off-takers provide the resources, and then we purchase the gold, and then we get the margins and the forex. That will be so. Bank of Ghana ostensibly will now be doing the forex operations and not necessarily providing funds for the purchase of the gold. And like I said earlier, the point must all be established that the current architecture that is being used, where the Bank of Ghana provide the resources for the gold purchase program, predates the creation of the gold board. Under the MPP from 2021 up to 2024, that operation was already done by the Bank of Ghana. And if you look at June 2021, when the program began, it was the Bank of Ghana that began the domestic gold purchase program. 2022, we scaled up the gold purchase program for severe, because of the difficulties that we had with the forex. And then that exposed the Bank of Ghana even before the creation of the gold board, same for 2023 and 2024. So the point is that there is no structural change in the architecture that was used for the purchase of the gold under the MPP regime. And now, the only thing that goes different from that of the 4-year period under the second term of President Akufo-Addo is because of the quantum of gold that has been purchased, and that must be established. So now moving forward, I am particularly happy. From June this year, the Bank of Ghana has fully moved out of gold board operations. That suggests that the 2026 annual statement will indicate a reduction in either the equity position and then the operating loss of the Bank of Ghana.
I mean, I just need to wrap up. I think my time is up. But 30 seconds.
Let me wrap up in this statement. If we're analyzing the pricing issues of gold board, people talk about the pricing regime. We should always have the benchmark. What are we benchmarking the gold pricing by gold board? What are we benchmarking it against? If you do not provide that context, it will only be. That's why when you ask the MP what exactly that they want to change in terms of the pricing and then the structure of the gold board, and he is not be able to provide one. The reason is because
he did. It was clear that you should fix the challenge between the time you purchase and the time you sell, because you're exposing yourself to the market, put in place mechanisms to reduce that risk.
Talking about the structure of the gold. You asked a question on structure. And I'm saying that they do not provide that alternative, because the idea of doing this regular press engagement is not because of anything to support the gold operation. It is because they know the impact the gold board has on stabilizing this economy, and that is the basis.
Okay, Ataisa, thank you very much. And Tunebua, just fair to get you to wrap up for me. You say you want an overhaul of the entire gold board architecture. Are you going to use parliamentary powers to compel that, or how do you intend to approach it?
Yeah. So as was said today in the press, release that was made, we want to have a full inquiry into this. We want parliamentary. As we speak now, all these charges, like I said, the ad valorem fees, if it is benchmark, the assaying fees that is charged, is it benchmark? We need to know. Okay. This off-taker discounts, is it benchmark? We need to know. We need to understand. In the entire value chain.
Okay, and you're hoping that bipartisan inquiry will lead to asking those questions and getting those answers. I'm grateful, Mr. Tunebua. Unfortunately, his line hasn't been stable, but Dr. Mattia, I'm grateful that you joined me, and then Prof as well.